Welcome back to the NBA Rundown. On today's show, we're actually going to do our 8 minutes of the association style show. It's my attempt to give you 8 minutes or less of what's actually going on in and around the NBA. On today's show, we've got a wide variety of topics, as you might imagine. One of them involves a volcano. I'm talking about, of course, Mount St. Giannis. We'll get into his latest potential eruption coming from that volcano a little later in the show. Plus, we'll talk about the Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron is sort of back at this point. Did you know the Lakers are 6-1 with LeBron back? We're going to talk about what the Lakers actually have to do to be a legitimate contender to OKC, who's giving me Golden State Warriors flashbacks. They've only lost one game so far this season. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. Plus, we want to talk about some of the biggest surprises so far in the NBA. Collin Gillespie out of Phoenix is certainly one of them. We'll dive into just how much or little money he's actually making to be putting up such impressive numbers. I've got that, plus some talk around the Detroit Pistons, a few other things as well. But welcome back, North America, to the NBA Rundown. As always, I'm Dave Dabbah. I bring you daily NBA news, trade reports, trade rumors, and of course, a whole lot of commentary as well. New to the show, hey, I don't know where you've been, but please go ahead and subscribe. As you can tell, I like to have some fun with this kind of show. Not a lot of fancy graphics on today's show, but I did want to start off, as I always do, by asking you a question. Now, I like this show to be as interactive as possible. In other words, I want to know what your thoughts and opinions are. I want to know where you think Anthony Davis is actually ultimately going to be traded to. Go ahead and drop your comments in. I don't want any of you to say back to the Los Angeles Lakers, but outside of that, I want to know what your thoughts and opinions are. So we begin tonight quickly with the volcano that is actually living in Milwaukee, of all places, in one Mount St. Giannis. I swear, he is just like a volcano that threatens to go off. Every 6 months or so, there's all sorts of reports that come out that have Giannis talking about his future with the good folks in the Milwaukee Bucks management team. Look, at the end of the day, I think it's actually going to finally explode. And when it erupts, where will Giannis ultimately land, I think, is the real question. Now, 90% in favor of the New York Knicks, go ahead and raise your hand. The other 10% of you out there are probably hoping Giannis ends up on your team. That being said, Giannis to Houston, Giannis to Dallas, Giannis to the Los Angeles Lakers, Giannis to the Golden State Warriors have all been extraordinarily popular topics on the internet over the past couple days, haven't they been? Look, nothing like seeing a Shams reports that Mount St. Giannis is about to explode once again. Drop your comments in. I want to know what you think about Mount St. Giannis. Okay, so moving on to the Los Angeles Lakers. We know that LeBron is sort of back at this point. He doesn't look as good as he looked last season. I can confidently tell you that. But the Lakers with Luka, LeBron, and of course Austin Reeves are just PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford away from being a serious contender in the Western Conference this year. And I think if the Lakers and Rob Pelinka are able to pull off another big trade to bring a big man to this team outside of Anthony Davis, I think that would be a major step in the right direction. I think it's something that the Lakers absolutely need to do if they are going to be a serious contender in the Western Conference. We know Houston's going to be tough. You know, the Timberwolves are going to do something. I mean, they've been to two Western Conference finals in a row. It's always a long, strange journey in Minnesota over the last couple of years. And if they ever figure out how to find a point guard that's not skiing all the way down the backside of Career Mountain, and I'm talking about Mike Conley, then they could be a contender against the Lakers as well. So the Lakers do need to bring in some sort of big man that it can rim protect and that can actually score as well and help with the spacing on the court. Now, one of the biggest surprises in the NBA so far this year, and we'll talk about the Pistons in just a second, and I'll talk about Derek Queen on another video, but he did have a triple-double, 33, 10, and 10 last night. Unbelievably impressive for Queen. And in fact, the Pels, who have only won 3 games, have a way better roster than a team that has just won 3 games so far this season. I'm just saying. But Collin Gillespie has been absolutely fantastic for the Phoenix Suns. Now, Collin started his career out undrafted, ended up playing with the Denver Nuggets. His rookie year, he actually got injured, never ever had a chance to actually play. That's the year the Nuggets actually won the NBA title. Then he series of 2-way contracts, and this year he signed a legitimate contract. He's actually representing 1.46% of the total Phoenix Suns salary cap this year. And look at what he's actually doing from a performance standpoint. North of 13 points a game, 4 to 5 assists a game, and a 3-point shooting percentage north of 43%. Collin Gillespie, clearly one of the biggest surprises so far in the NBA. I want to know what your thoughts are on Gillespie if you've had a chance to see him play. I've seen him play at least one handful of times so far this season, and he's a gutsy little basketball player. Isn't that Collin Gillespie? I'm just saying. All right, so biggest team surprise, at least so far at this point, you've got to give it to the Detroit Pistons. Now, we did a podcast yesterday on the Boston Celtics, and we asked the question, how surprised are you by the Boston Celtics playing as well as they are so far this season? Currently in third place in the Eastern Conference. And, my conclusion on that is they did not want to tank, and they have too good of a head coach to tank. In other words, with Joe Mazzulla being there, they were certainly actually always going to be in the mix as long as Jaylen Brown was healthy, Derek White was healthy, and Pritchard continues to improve. Nobody saw Jordan Walsh actually playing well, but he is. So that's why the Celtics are doing as well as they're doing to this point. But in terms of the Detroit Pistons, playing as well as the Pistons have actually been playing. Can you imagine, just going into the Detroit Pistons front office before the start of the season and saying to them, from a record perspective, and I want you to be totally honest with me, tell me exactly how many losses you think you will have after 24 games. And I guarantee they would not have said 5 because that is where this Detroit Pistons team is. And if you want to talk about an unbelievably great job coaching this year, you got to give it to Bickerstaff and his entire staff for doing a fabulous job. Even when Cade Cunningham has been sidelined or Jalen Duren has been out, they've still found ways to win games with a roster that, quite frankly, you probably would only recognize 4 or 5 of the players on the roster. You'd actually have to go to ChatGPT for the other players on that team at this point. So I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions on that. All right, we covered a lot. I don't know if I hit the 8 minutes or less mark. I tried. I did my best. That being said, I want to know where you think Anthony Davis should be traded. Drop your comments in. Once again, if you are new to the NBA Rundown, where the hell have you been? Please go ahead and subscribe. Try to bring a little sarcasm to this show night in and night out. I hope you like it. Drop your comments in. As always, for the NBA Rundown, I'm Dave Dabbah, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing day.